Springtime brings so many special occasions, so why not spring into Dewey's for all your celebration needs? From custom, unique cakes to balloons and party tableware to the perfect gift, Dewey's is your one-stop shop in the Triad. Even if you don't have a big event on the horizon, it's always a great day to stop by your local Dewey's Bakery, especially on Mondays for a free Cake Square Day. No purchase necessary and available all year round at any of their Triad area locations in Winston-Salem at Thruway Shopping Center and Renolda Manor, and in Greensboro at the Friendly Shopping Center. Need to place that order now? Visit local.deweys.com, and as a listener of the Triad Podcast Network, you'll receive 25% off by using the code PODCAST. Our friends at Dewey's are always finding great ways to give back to our local community, providing millions of dollars to nonprofits. Your organization can also partner with Dewey's to raise money. Just email cake@deweys.com to learn more. Don't miss the chance to make your event even more special with an order at local.deweys.com. Use the promo code PODCAST for 25% off. Dewey's. Celebrate every day.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
Hello, friends, and welcome to a special Masters Week edition of the Triad Podcast Network Real Estate Show with Blake Ginther. Blake, I'm going to try not to be distracted. We're recording this on opening round Thursday. I'm going to try not to be distracted by the computer screen to my left, watching Scotty Scheffler remind people just how good he is yet again.
Yeah, consistently. If you can just dub in the music, the sweet Masters music that they've been playing now for like 50 years in the beginning of this podcast, that'd be great.
All right. So before we get into our topic today, I think we did this last year and both of us were wrong. Who'd you pick to take home the jacket this year?
My pick this year, obviously, besides Scotty, because if I had to put all my money on one person, it would be Scotty.
Right.
But if I don't get Scotty, I'm going random. I'm going to go Tommy Fleetwood. I don't know why.
Yep. Yeah. He had a strong finish last year. I think he finished, I don't know, top 5, I believe he was last year.
He plays well at Augusta. He's a heck of a putter. Mm-hmm. He's very consistent. He can move the ball both directions, but nobody knows of him. I mean, he's technically, I think, top 10, or he's very close. He's like 12. He's the 12th best player in the world, but nobody knows of him.
Great head of hair, too.
Unbelievable head of hair.
Amazing flow on top of the dome.
It's true.
All right. So we're talking real estate, Blake. And again, one more question before we get into our topic today, which is we're going to try to tie into this time of year and the amazing scenery that is Augusta National Golf Club. We are in the thick of spring. So what's happening real estate wise that people should know about?
Yeah, so days on market has in the last 5-6 months has gone from 2 days to 60 days, and I think that's probably the biggest adjustment is that consumers are struggling with things not selling instantly. Buyers go, well, what's wrong with the house, and sellers are still saying, well, it hasn't. We're getting all these showings. So I think that just expectations are still a little out of alignment, a little in whack with buyers thinking, well, it's been on the market for a month, so now I can offer low. That's what, and they're doing it, and then of course they're missing out to people who are coming in more seriously. So I think the world is a little bit on fire, Adam. There's been some stuff in our world that's shaking things up a bit, and I think that therefore people go, well, I'm just going to put myself on the sidelines, which is totally fine, but just know that there's a lot of people who need to buy a house right now and need to sell a house right now for a variety of reasons, and so that's still happening, and I think that those not need to buy or need to sell sellers or buyers are just kind of going to continue to get beat by those buyers and sellers that do. You know what I mean?
I do. I do know what you mean. And that's similar to what we talked about in this context in last month's episode. And because it was March Madness, the last time we spoke, we played a little game where I asked Blake to give me some top seeds for the reasons why a home gets noticed by a buyer. And you mentioned things like cleanliness, like curb appeal, like kitchen, closet space. And I wanted to unpack the curb appeal part of this for a moment. And because this is a time, and we've already talked golf, and I know a lot of people are focused on the Masters this week, but it's not just about golf courses. This is the time when everything starts to pop. And there's all these blooms and colors. And yes, I know pollen comes with it, but your grass is probably never greener than it's going to be when spring finally arrives before the summer heat starts to get it. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to talk about curb appeal. Everyone's heard that phrase when it comes to real estate and getting your home noticed. But I'd love to ask you and get into a conversation about what is curb appeal and what is actually appealing and what is maybe not as appealing to most people. Yeah. So let me just start with the question of, how do you define curb appeal?
So, I mean, I think my definition is the simplest, which is when you pull up to the curb, does the house appear charming and well maintained?
Without stepping foot in it.
Without stepping foot in it, just from literally the curb, does the house have character, have charm, and look well maintained? And I do think that the challenge with that is, depending on what season we're in, that can be easy or tough. If your house doesn't have curb appeal right now, it ain't ever going to have curb appeal. Because per Masters weekend, it's literally on purpose. Right? It's not a coincidence that it's Masters weekend this weekend. They wait until the azaleas are in bloom. Right, they wait until everything is in bloom in Augusta, Georgia, and our climate is not terribly different. We're usually a week or 10 days behind them, but we're in bloom. Right, it's already started, and your house should look gorgeous in April. And so your curb appeal should be strong. I get this. The most common question I get about curb appeal from sellers, though, is, do we have to? We got some bald spots in the yard. Do we have to do anything there? And mulch or pine needles. And what I'll tell you is, purely for selling, and I know this is as a northerner, Midwestern kid, we didn't do pine straw. And when I moved down here, I thought it was the strangest thing. And now what I'll tell you is pine straw. Pine straw for sellers. It's less expensive, and your pest company, your inspection company doesn't like mulch. So double win for pine straw. It's easier, quicker. And then, throw down some seed and hay on your bald spots. Make it look like you're trying. And that's all buyers can ask for. So that combined with Mother Nature should be your curb appeal.
Yeah. Okay. So let's focus on the things around the outside of the house, but not necessarily on the house. And so we're talking about landscaping beds. We're talking about grass. We're talking about things that you plant into the ground. Green grass. I mean, making sure that your grass is green, full of weeds. How much do people pay attention to the lawn?
It's funny. I think it very much depends on location, right? I'd say half of Ardmore is clover. So you get a pass in certain neighborhoods, and West End is half the neighborhood is concrete. So, you get a pass on where you live. But if you live in the suburbs, or like in a neighborhood like Sherwood, where people move there because of the size of lots, although grass is tough with all those big old trees, it's you definitely. If it's not green, throw down some hay and make it look like you're working on it being green. But I do think that this time of year, the grass should be green, or at least effort should be shown.
And pine needles, I get that maybe they're not as practical as mulch in terms of what they provide for your soil, for your plants, but if we're talking curb appeal, it's not even a question, right? Pine needles greater than mulch.
1000%. The aesthetic, freshly laid pine needles when they're all fluffed up, and some people don't love that look. I get it. I respect it. But the reality is the average buyer does. It's less expensive, it's quicker, and your pest and general inspector will prefer it. So check, check, check. Pine needles.
Yeah. Make sure your beds are free of weeds, right?
Make sure they're free of weeds, and or get those pine needles over them before the pictures are taken.
Maybe would it be a good idea to have just a storage of some extra bales of pine needles so that you can lay fresh ones out in certain spots before showings?
I mean, look, if the company does a good job, they put down so much now that you can go out there and fluff your needles anytime.
You can fluff your needles.
I think we got the title of this one.
Fluffing needles. That's right. It's time to get serious about your financial future. It's never too early, but it could be too late to get started. And that's oftentimes the hardest part, getting started. How much do I save? Where do I invest? Do I save for college or retirement? How much for each? And who do I talk to about it all? Okay, we'll keep things simple for now and help you answer the last one. We recommend you begin with a local financial advisor. And that's Jennifer Johnson of Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. She'll sit down with you for a complimentary introductory consultation and go over all of your questions. Get started on the path to achieving your financial goals. Visit threemagnoliasfinancialadvisors.com or call 336-701-1600. Get comfortable with your financial future. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Retirement, financial planning, and investments. Securities offered through Private Client Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Private Client Services are not affiliated. Private Client Services is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Anything else about the yard that people maybe overlook when it comes, like a mailbox or anything like that? Mailbox, I would say that power washing of concrete is often overlooked, because especially this time of year where we're coming out of like the rainy, cold season where the algae just thrived, or if you have a northern exposure that is visible, it probably has algae. So power washing the sidewalk, especially the driveway and or sidewalk. I did a power wash of my entire home. Like, I literally washed the home. By the way, it did make the house smell good and then sparkle. So power washing is something that, and then lastly, man, exterior wood rot. We're the wood rot of that happens here in our climate in the winter months. We get a ton of rain and in the cold. So if you have wood soffits or exterior wood around your doors, even the threshold of your front door, quite literally can be your first step in the home, can be all chipped, painted, and not looking good. So those are the check marks for exterior. Yeah. Let me ask you a return on investment question, because you mentioned driveways. If you've got an old driveway, it's cracked, doesn't look all that appealing, a good power washing isn't going to do much to the way that it presents to somebody. It's not cheap to get a driveway replaced, or if you got asphalt just to get it repaved. What's the return on investment there? Is that worth the investment in terms of what you might get back in curb appeal and potentially in selling the home? It's probably an unpopular answer, but my answer is no. My answer is it would have to be pretty darn bad. And there are times where I'm like, woof, I hate this. It's like, I feel the same way about windows. They're important, right? Driveways are important. Garage doors are important. Windows are important. Your return on investment is minimal on those things. That's quite literally the socks and underwear of your house. Roof, driveway, windows, you got to have them. But nobody goes, boy, look at that beauty. Look at that driveway. Look at that roof. Look at those windows. Yeah, because it's going to make people think about it. And then they're going to step into the home and they're going to start looking at the things they really care about.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I liked what you said about, maybe you don't want the first step that somebody takes into a home is over chipped or rotted wood around the threshold of your front door.
Yeah.
What else on the exterior of the house? If you're looking at the house, okay, so you've seen the driveway, you've seen the lawn, everything looks great. You freshly fluffed needles around the home, but now you look at the exterior of the house from the front. What are you seeing that is going to normally catch your attention?
From we're in the front of the home. So
front of the home. You're looking at the front of the
foyer.
Yep.
So I think the first thing it is probably light, natural light, and or if you have a darker foyer, this is why everybody recommends having all your lights on. It's just a subtle little thing, by the way. If you're considering selling, change all your light bulbs. Freshly change all your light bulbs before you go live. So they match, and because what happens is if you start to have different color light bulbs, then people actually notice. If they're all the same, people don't notice. So, or they notice less. So you want all your lights on. So the very first thing people typically notice in a home is smell and just vibe, light. And so and by the way, smell doesn't just mean pets. I did have a listing where the first thing you noticed, and all of our feedback said this, the first thing you noticed when you walked in the front door was dogs. Everybody loves dogs. Everybody loves their own dogs. But they don't love others. It's like, so if your house smells like dog, not ideal. Don't put one of those air fresheners in either, because then if all they smell is the air freshener and they wonder what you're covering up. So in a perfect world, I would say people maybe if they burn candles for a little bit, but then they let the air out naturally and, several hours. And so there's very little smell. And then, natural light, man, it just sets the vibe.
Yeah. The smell, that's not something that we've covered before. And I really like what you said about the air freshener. It's like, let me spray the home so it smells good. And
don't do that.
Some people might walk in and thinking, oh, they're hiding something. Yeah.
I highly recommend unlit open candles, because they do give off of a just a hint of smell of fresh, and I actually recommend like a fruit, like a naturally more fruit smell. Subtle, does the job.
Okay. All right. What about as you're walking up to the home, before you open the front door, before you walk inside, you're looking around at, you mentioned windows, but siding, is it power washed, color, all these different things. What are people looking at, noticing as they're walking up to the front door of the home?
Well, I think it depends on are they walking up a hill? Because it could be a negative if they're, depending on slope. I think reason why most realtors recommend flower boxes, either like at windows or big pots on the front, is what we want them noticing, right, is the house. We don't want them noticing the neighbors. We don't want them noticing anything we can't control, like the grade. We want them noticing the home, specifically the very front of the home, right, where they're walking, which is why we want to pull focus with fresh flower pots, right, right near the front door or front stoop.
Color of front door, does that matter?
There was a time where it felt like everybody had to have a red door. No, I don't think it matters anymore, other than it being freshly painted. I do think that can really add to the curb appeal. I'm not a fan of like, of like the old school green or blue or black that everyone had. I think either like a natural wood or a color that gives energy, right? Whether it's a red or a blue, a lighter blue or a yellow or an orange or something that gives off a vibe.
Yeah. I'm really getting in the weeds here, no pun intended. But what about doorknob? Like if somebody has a smart lock on their front door or something like that, that's just like, oh, that'd be cool to have with this house.
Yeah, maybe I can't undo the realtor in me. I don't love the mechanical doorknobs that a lot of people have. They cause problems. They also, by the way, a lot of sellers are listening to everything you say now from those things. So I have mixed emotions on the technical, all of those potentially what could be bonus for the buyer, but also from a transfer can be a little challenging. I miss the old two-tone doorbell and like simple doorknob.
Yeah. Or just the dun, 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 dun,
Oh,
dun,
bring it
dun,
back.
dun.
Yeah, yes, yeah, all the way back.
All right. More one more question that's more technology based. Um, Security system. And I know that you won't notice that until you get in the home, but you might see the sign outside that says that they've got a security system. Any impact there?
I recommend. I do. I think honestly, everybody should have one of those signs in their yard, and I do think
Whether you have a security system or not.
totally, yeah. And every now and then you hear a buyer go, is this especially if they're not from around here, is this an unsafe neighborhood? I'm like, huh, what makes you say that? And they'll be like, the security. Like, I mean, that's just kind of today's world. My comment usually is, well, like, I would recommend everybody have a sign in their yard. It's we can certainly look on police reports to see if there's been recent activity. Usually not as much. It's just not a bad idea.
Yeah. I've heard the same thing as well, that hey, even if you don't have a security system, throw one in the yard.
At least have a sign in the yard. Yep,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah. Not a security. Yeah. Don't throw a security system in the yard. Throw a
Yeah,
sign.
don't do that. Yeah, they knew what you meant, Adam.
Yeah. I mean, some people, this isn't necessarily curb appeal because sometimes you can't see that, but you can see things when you drive up, like, is there a fence in the backyard? Maybe there's a fence in the front yard. I don't know, something that might give off pet friendly. Anything else that somebody might notice around the home?
And it's funny. There are certain neighborhoods I always laugh because I think Ardmore is the most pet dependent neighborhood. There's so many pets in Ardmore.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's kind of funny because they're smaller lots, but fenced backyards in neighborhoods like that matter for sure. People are looking for that, and just walkability matters in that sense. Whether you can control that or not as a homeowner, but it matters. And I do think that if you have a fence, the condition of the fence and or it being recently stained, people often know they need to stain their paint or stain their deck, but they let their fences kind of look shabby. Um, just says something about you and about the home if the fence is falling over.
Yeah. All right. It's good stuff, man. Anything that we left out when it comes to something that catches somebody's eye before they even step into the home?
I think the interesting thing about curb appeal is there are more often than not, curb appeal is more of a potential negative of people not having it in a positive versus versus the positive. Every now and then you'll drive a home and you're like, man, that home is charming. Most homes in our area are just kind of similar, and it's more of a, does it look well kept? Every now and then you got a few charming houses and you're like, that thing is adorable. But for the most part, it's more like just make them, just don't, to the point of the show, don't think that the showing starts the moment people pull up. In fact, it might never happen because if they pull up and it doesn't look well maintained or charming, they might never step foot in it.
That's what I was going to ask you, is should curb appeal be thought of as, I mean, look, you want to do some work around it, but it can hurt you more than it can help you, in that it could, if you don't pay attention to it, it could be a reason why somebody never even gives the inside of your home a chance.
Oh, and it could absolutely play a factor as to why you're not getting showings or are getting showings. People are driving by typically before they ask to see it, the inside.
Yeah. But to your point about driveways, don't invest a lot of money because that's not going to be something you're going to get that back in the price of the sale. If you need to invest money in something, do that inside the house rather than outside the house. But you can make modest purchases like pine needles and weed killer and things like that.
Yeah, and you can you can raise a concrete slab by, calling companies that do that, right, without having to replace your entire driveway. You can minimize the defect versus replacing is what I would recommend.
Yeah. Well said. Okay, my man. Well, I appreciate it. This is a topic I've always been interested in because everyone, I think, knows the phrase curb appeal, but maybe haven't had a chance to really dig in. Again, no pun intended, and think about it. But thanks for answering all my rapid fire questions on this.
I hope this fluffed some people's needles,
Oh, I feel needles being fluffed out in the podcast space as we speak.
I hope so.
All right, my friend, how can they find you and your wonderful team at the Ginther Group?
Find us on the interwebs at theginthergroup.com, theginthergroup.com, or 336-283-8689, 283-8689. Real quick plug, our seller pricing app is improved, and you now get 3 different quotes, and I can edit it if you challenge any of them, but I often find that all my friends who have used it have been like, dang, that's awesome. So
wow. Okay.
And that can be found on our website, theginthergroup.com. And, just like when we walk into a store and they say, can I help you? And you either instinctually say, no, I'm good. You can just go right on there and do it without a bother of a human.
And I'll give you one more plug. You guys just announced maybe the best giveaway opportunity that I've ever seen.
Thanks, man.
Flat
I'm
out.
pumped about it.
Full stop.
Totally pumped about it.
Amazing giveaway. I'm not even going to spoil it here. I'm going to force you to go to the Ginther Group social media channels, Facebook, Instagram. Go check it out. You will not be disappointed on what they are offering, and you should take action.
No strings attached. All they have to do is call in. Like, that's it. Just call in,
yep.
And you will get the opportunity to win, I think, something that very few humans aren't going to love.
Oh, my goodness. I would jump at the chance for something like this. So, yeah.
I would hope that you or your wife will be calling in for the opportunity.
You better believe it. You better believe it. It's that good. People, go check it out. Blake, thank you so much. Good luck to Tommy Fleetwood this weekend. And we'll talk to you soon, man.
See you, brother.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode on the Triad Podcast Network. Our mission is simple: provide information, advice, and stories about the people and places that make the North Carolina Triad such a great place to be. You can find us by searching Triad Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you like to listen. If you like what you heard and want to support the show and those that contribute, we would truly appreciate a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It helps spread the word along, as do your shares on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Triad Podcast. To get in touch with us, simply email info@triadpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.